Hi everyone! Welcome back to another video on my Storytime channel. So, I read They Shook Hands Year 1. It was a fun experience. I loved They Shook Hands. It's my favorite Harry Potter fanfiction of all time. So I'm going to start with They Shook Hands Year 2, and without further ado, let's continue then. They Shook Hands Year 2, Chapter 1, The Long Quiet. Okay, let's begin then. It had been a month since Harry Potter had said goodbye to his friends at the train station. It had been a month since he had had a friendly word from anyone. They'd all promised to write to him. Every day since returning to the place he nominally called home, he had waited for a letter from many of his friends. His days were filled with household chores, but he took time every night to stare up at the dark sky with a deep longing. Stillness filled this night as the stars twinkled down from on high. He turned away from his window with a sigh, trying not to give in to despair. He was desperate for some word. Harry was horribly lonely. He lived for 10 years without friends. He learned to get along without them. Then Draco, Theo, Tracy, Millie, Pansy, Daphne, Crabbe, and Goyle had burst into his life like a meteor shower and changed it irrevocably. Now Harry missed them terribly. Not one letter-bearing owl had appeared in the sky since he returned to his so-called home. Were it not for his own owl, Regal, sitting in his cage, Harry would have sworn that the whole thing had been a fantastic dream. For you see, Harry was no ordinary boy. He was a wizard, had attended Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry during the past year. He had adventures, excitement, danger, and loads of fun. Harry had grown to love the old castle with its secret passageways and ghosts, the post arriving via owl at breakfast, the sumptuous banquets held in the Great Hall. He enjoyed all of his classes, even Transfiguration with the mean old deputy headmistress, Professor McGonagall. Harry missed sleeping in his four-poster bed in the dungeon dormitory of Slytherin House and walking to the sunrise shining through the large window set into the cliff face. Most of all, he missed Quidditch, the wizarding world's most popular sport, the rules of which were both complicated and fascinating. Harry missed Hogwarts so much that it hurt. There was a gnawing ache in his stomach most times no food could cure. He couldn't even go through his wizarding things and remind himself because all his worldly possessions had been locked up in the cupboard under the stairs that had been Harry's bedroom for 10 years. Despite his protests to the contrary, Harry had been shipped back to stay the summer holiday with his dead mother's sister and her husband, Petunia and Vernon Dursley, who treated him much like a dog that has rolled in something smelly. They had raised him, if such a term could be applied, since he was 1 year old, when his parents had been murdered by the most powerful dark sorcerer of all time, Lord Voldemort, whose name many witches and wizards still fear to speak. Voldemort had meant to murder Harry as well, but inexplicably, the curse had rebounded back on Voldemort, and all his great powers had been destroyed. Harry had been left alone in the world, with only a thin scar shaped like a bolt of lightning on his forehead. That scar marked Harry. He was absolutely famous throughout the wizarding world, not of course that he knew anything about it. He had been stuck with living with muggles, what wizards called non-magic folk, for 10 years. They had told him his parents had died in a car crash, and that scar was from that accident. Those 10 years had been absolute torment for Harry, because he couldn't explain the way he had made strange things happen without meaning to. He'd been treated like a freak. Were it not for his letter from Hogwarts, Harry was sure that he'd still be locked in the cupboard under the stairs. When that letter had arrived, the whole story had come spilling out. Harry still felt the towering resentment towards the Muggles for what they'd done to him, but he'd be satisfied if he could just leave Number 4 Private Drive and never come back. Harry rested his elbows on the dresser and stared at his own reflection in the mirror. His jet black hair was untidy as it always was. He made some attempt to push it back, but it flopped forward again. Harry leaned forward, looking deep into his own brilliant green eyes. "I've got to get out of here," he said to the quiet room, "or I shall go mad." His clock made a single tone, and he looked over to see that the hour was just midnight. "Happy birthday, Harry," he said to himself. Today was 31 July, Harry's 12th birthday. Surely today some post would come for him. Surely his friends would not forget his birthday. Harry went back to the window. He fought back a yawn, determined to stay awake for as long as he could. A letter would come, he just knew it. That thought was the last he had as his head drooped further and further, finally coming to rest on his folded arms. He slept at the windowsill, undisturbed by any letter-bearing owls. Next morning at breakfast, Harry did his best to ignore his relatives. He had his one fried egg and single piece of toast quickly, for if he lingered, Dudley, his fat, obnoxious cousin, would steal it just for spite, and Harry certainly would not get more. "Is that bacon ready yet, boy?" Uncle Vernon asked him in an unfriendly tone of voice. Inwardly sighing, Harry swallowed his last bite and got to his feet. As he brought the frying pan to the table from the cooker, he was quick enough to snatch 2 pieces of bacon, which he shoved into his mouth, ignoring the sting of the hot grease. He learned to live with such minor discomforts if he wanted to sneak food. Dudley emptied the pan, piling bacon on his plate. "Harry stole some bacon," he shouted. Harry jumped. "What?" Uncle Vernon's face was growing red. The veins at his temples beginning to throb. "Dudley, what are you saying? There's only 6 pieces here. He's got grease on his mouth, Dudley howled. "He stole my bacon." "Boy!" Uncle Vernon cried, reaching for Harry's arm. Startled, the heavy frying pan slipped from his grasp, clattering to the floor and flinging hot grease everywhere. Dudley began to cry, and Petunia shrieked as she was burned. Harry cracked his head on the doorframe as Uncle Vernon flung him away. Dizzy and seeing stars, he stumbled out of the kitchen and towards his bedroom, wistfully let one hand linger on the locked door of his old cupboard, wishing he could get at his things and just leave this awful place. He was assisted into his room by Uncle Vernon, who came thundering up the stairs after him. "You are not to leave this room unless we have work for you to do," the red-faced man bloated him. "You mark my words, there will be a lot." He raised his meaty fist in the air and held the pose for a moment. Then, having made his point, he turned and slammed the door on his way out. Harry's head was spinning, but his anger was burning. Tonight, he vowed, he would break the lock in the cupboard and take back his prized racing broom, his wand, and the invisible cloak that belonged to his father. All the rest of his possessions he could leave behind. The Dursleys could light them on fire for all he cared. He would leave and never look back. He didn't have to put up with this treatment. He shouldn't have lived in fear of a beating for just eating some bacon. Uncle Vernon hadn't hit him tonight, and in truth he seldom did, but there was always the chance. There was always the question. "Boy!" Vernon shouted through the door. "Get out here." Was he back already? Harry got to his feet and stumbled for the door. His arm was throbbing through the dizziness appeared to have passed. "What?" he asked, opening the door. "Today is a very important day," Uncle Vernon began, and Harry couldn't help but perk up a bit. Could it be that they'd actually remembered his birthday? "This could be the day I make the biggest deal of my life," the big man continued. Harry's heart fell. He should have known better. The Dursleys didn't care about him at all. Why should they remember his birthday? Only something that concerned them would be important. The Masons will be here promptly at 8 o'clock, Uncle Vernon talked of little else besides the stupid dinner party he was having to woo with some rich builder into buying a lot of drills from Grunnings, Uncle Vernon's company. You'll have eaten beforehand and you'll be here in your room making absolutely no noise and pretending you don't exist. Got that? "I'll be sitting in my room, making no noise, and pretending I'm not here," Harry said dutifully. While not precisely what Uncle Vernon meant, every word Harry had said was true. "Too right you will," Uncle Vernon said ominously. "The Masons don't know anything about you, and it's going to stay that way. If they do find out about you, you won't eat for a week, I promise you that." "Yes, sir," Harry said, tired of the fat man's threats. "All he had to do is make it through tonight. What a wonderful birthday present to himself would be to finally leave this Odysseus place. I'm going to town to pick up the dinner jackets. Get your lazy self outside and wash the windows. Once you're done with that, mow the lawn. Your aunt will have more work for you if you're done before I get back. Move it." Harry took himself listlessly outside. As he retrieved the bucket, he thought about where he would go. By the time the first window was soaped, he determined to fly north. He'd find Hogsmeade Village somehow, get a message to someone. He moved on to the next window. Professor Snape, head of Slytherin House. He'd always been good to Harry. If anyone could help, it would be Professor Snape. Hadn't he told the first-year Slytherins that his door was always open to them? Maybe he could break Regal out of his cage, send his letter, and then follow the owl on his broom. Regal was a smart owl. He would lead Harry right to where he wanted to go. Harry mused on that for a bit as he finished up with the windows. Actually, he didn't need to plan much more. Professor Snape would know what he should do. Harry hurried through mowing the lawn. With luck, he could have a few minutes to himself before he got back to work. What a miserable birthday. No cards, no presents, and he would be spending the evening pretending not even exist. He kicked irritably at the edge, slumping on the garden bench. Something shining in the hedge caught his attention. He leaned closer, peering into the shadows. Maybe he'd be lucky it would be some muggle money he could go get a sweet from this little shop on the corner. "I know what day it is," came Dudley's jeering voice. Harry jumped, looking away from the hedge. If Dudley knew there might be money in there, he'd steal in a second. What? Harry asked, trying to remain calm. I said I know what day it is, Dudley repeated, waddling right up to Harry. Congratulations, Harry said, clapping his hands mockingly. You finally learned the days of the week, have you? You shut up, Dudley ordered him. Today's your birthday, he sneered. How come you haven't got any cards? Got no friends at that freak school either? Better not let your mom catch talking about my school, Harry replied coolly. Dudley hitched up his trousers, which were slipping down his fat bottom. Don't you have some work to do, he asked nastily. What are you doing to the hedge? I'm about ready to set it on fire, Harry smirked. Want to watch? Want to watch? Dudley stumbled backwards at once, a look of fear coming onto his face. You can't! Dad told you you're not to do that stuff. You'll be tossed out of the house. Dudley was stammering with panic. Tossed out of the house? Oh, it's a dream, Harry thought. Then where will you go? You've got nothing and nobody. Umma gumma, Harry said in a fierce voice, taking a step towards his cousin. Abracadabra! Presto changeo! Dudley ran for his life, howling for his mummy. Harry allowed himself a brief smile. Harry paid dearly for his bit of fun, though. Despite the fact that neither Dudley nor the hedge was harmed in any way, Aunt Petunia still took a swipe at him with the soapy frying pan and put him to work. He will not eat again until the flower beds have been wetted, weeded, the rose bushes pruned and watered, the garden bench painted, and the car washed. Hop to it, she snapped at him. Dudley made it worse for Harry by lounging around in plain sight and eating ice cream. The sun burned brightly in the cloudless sky. Harry could feel his skin cooking. He wasn't at all regretful for scaring Dudley like he had. In all likelihood, they would have made him they would have made him do this work anyway. Hours later, his back aching, his neck burning, and his sweat running down his face, he was finally called in to eat his supper. Walk on the newspapers, Aunt Petunia harped at him. Harry ground his teeth together, fiercely resisting the urge to stomp all over the sparkling floor. Washing his hands, he sat down at the table to eat the 2 slices of bread and a small lump of cheese that had been laid out for him. He could smell the pork roast sizzling in the oven. Tonight's pudding was up on top of the refrigerator, a huge amount of whipped cream and sugared violets. Trying not to let his mouth water too much, Harry took a bite of the bread. This is a pathetic dinner, and Harry, even compared to what he normally got to eat. Petunia whisked his plate away before he could even put the last bite in his mouth. Though he was already moving toward the stairs, she hurried him along, looking downright silly in the salmon pink cocktail dress she wore. As he passed the door to the living room, Harry caught a glimpse of Uncle Vernon and Dudley in bow ties, and dinner jackets, looking even sillier. He only reached the upstairs landing when the doorbell rang, and Uncle Vernon's furious face appeared at the foot of the stairs. That'll be the Masons. Remember, boy, if I hear one sound of you... He trailed off, leaving the threat unspecified. Harry ignored him. He wouldn't be around to suffer whatever punishment was sure to be his anyway. He stepped into his room and closed the door. Looking out into the evening sky, the first stars were just beginning to appear. Harry sat at the window. Surely a letter would come. He wasn't forgotten. Perhaps an hour had gone by when Harry sighed deeply. No owl appeared bearing a message from one of his friends. He sniffed back a tear. Something down the street was moving. Harry peered at it. Certainly it was more interesting than his room, whatever it was. It was a person he could see wearing a hooded jacket. There was nothing particularly unusual about that, but then a breeze came by and caught at the person's clothing. He wasn't wearing a jacket at all. He was wearing a hooded black robe. Harry's breath caught in his throat. A wizard. He was coming up the front walk. Harry had hardly dared to believe his eyes. The tall wizard knocked on the front door with a heavy fist. Harry ran out of his room and stood at the top of the stairs. Something had come to rescue him, just like Hagrid had last year. Who the devil could that be at this time of night? Uncle Vernon said in the kitchen. Excuse me, please. As he passed the stairs, he looked up and scowled at Harry. Room, he mouthed. Harry didn't move. Yes? Uncle Vernon said, opening the door. He gasped in horror and fell back instantly, very nearly tripping over his own feet. A tall figure stood in the doorway, arms folded across his chest imposingly. The wizard wore a long black robe, just as Harry had seen through his window, and the hood was pulled up. Swathed in shadow, a blank, white mask covered the stranger's face. The wizard ignored Uncle Vernon and looked up the stairs directly at Harry. Harry Potter, gather your things, came a hollow voice. You're coming with me. See here, squeaked Uncle Vernon in a tone much removed from his normal voice. You are not welcome here. I insist you leave at once. You can't just come barging into my home and take the boy away. I'll not have it. The wizard dropped his face and stared at Uncle Vernon. Silence, Muggle, he ordered. Do not speak to me again. He looked up back up at Harry in an expectant manner. This wasn't one of his professors. Of that much, Harry was certain. The strange wizard wasn't tall enough to be any of the adults at Hogwarts, too tall to be Professor Flitwick. Of the wizards he knew, only his friends knew where he lived. This wizard was too tall to be any of his friends, but some of them had older siblings. Harry ran into his room and grabbed Regal's cage. He hurried down the stairs, not caring he was making more noise than Dudley. He snatched Uncle Vernon's keys out of the basket on the hall table and unlocked the cupboard. Vernon, What's going on out here? We have guests, remember? Demanded Aunt Petunia as she came out of the kitchen. Louisa glared in her direction. She shrieked in terror, rushing to her husband's side and latching onto his arm. Harry dragged his school trunk to the door. In it were all of his clothes, school books, and his broomstick.